Okay, growing soybeans. So this is us. We don't usually have 12-foot high rye in our neck of the woods. Our seasons are short. Our days are long. Our days are longer than yours, but our season is shorter than yours. Okay? So it starts a little later and ends a little earlier, but our days are long. Okay? So the sunlight's our friend. So when we started going down the road with beans and canola and pinto beans, soybeans, we can put them into this green environment, in this case a cereal rye. That is one way to kind of help stabilize it. When we started, we grew them we terminated rather quickly in terms of our moisture bank. We're about a 16-inch annual precip, which is more than enough water to grow whatever we want to grow. And when you want to get more aggressive, you can go this route. And so we went this route this past year, and then we sickle mowed it. And so that allowed us to terminate it earlier than crimping, because by the time we can crimp it, our season is in danger. And so another option. And then we put these three examples together. So these are in the program. There's 3 individuals that we interviewed. They're long-term green planters, soybean into green, and they're in different locations in our state, some drier, some wetter, so you get a little diversity. But those 3, this one here is Tony Fisher, Dana Fletcher, Robert Heydrich. You can find them on our website, or you can find them on YouTube in general. But they have a great short clip on of each of them as to why they've done this and how they've done it successfully over wet year, dry year type environment. But ultimately, we don't stabilize that. So we're trying to stabilize that scenario. You can't build a soil if you're going to have erosion. And so we have to get that part stabilized. We try to do a little grazing whenever we can. So if we can graze for a week or 2 in the spring, we'll do that as well. That's a nice daily gain, typically. Okay. So another option if you have livestock. Low carbon crops, companion cover crops. So one of my farming buddies in Missouri, he routinely grows buckwheat, plants it at the same time in a box drill as the soybean. So he's done this for a lot of years. And usually about the time, this is a no-till system with herbicide, and usually about the time that it just flowers, that's about termination time. So he gets the buckwheat to that stage. Buckwheat's quicked out of the ground and turns into kind of a standard looking crop shortly after that. And then more recently we have a South Dakota farmer who's in year 3 or 4. You can look this individual up on the South Dakota Soil Health Coalition website. His name is Alex Fraser, so there's his name right there. And he has grown soybean with covers at the same time. He plants them all the same day, same operation. And he decides on the cover crop species with his resource concern. So he has salinity, so he has some cereal rye in there. He has some white mold, so he has some oat, and I believe he was also putting in a broadleaf like flax. And so he kind of looks at his resource concerns, and then he puts in his covers. The covers are on 15s and the beans are on 15s. So everything's 7.5 inches apart at the end of the day. And then his goal is to not terminate. He's a traditional no-tiller. His goal is to not terminate till the oat goes in the boot. Now, he's getting about 7 to 8 weeks, so is he getting the carbon exudate? Yes, he's getting the carbon exudate. He's getting plant exudates to address his resource concerns. And so this is a really interesting story, and he's got some pretty good data. So I emailed him and I said, come to the Menoken Farm and present at our August workshop. We have a crops, covers, and cows workshop typically in August. So he's going to come. I'm going to put him together a field just like his. So one of our fields will go into beans with the covers. And we'll set him in that field that day. And he can be in his comfort zone. and explain his system. So he's got, I think this will be his 4th year into it. And when I see a farmer do something like that many years in a row, he saw something he liked, okay? And he's had a strong response on it. So I think that's real positive. And this kind of shows a picture he sent me, kind of shows the covers and the beans. On 15s, termination, he said averages around 7 weeks. Oat just getting into the boot. And this article is on that site. So if you go to the South Dakota Soil Health Coalition website, Alex Fraser, you'll find this article, Farmer Reaps Rewards. And so I think in our neck of the woods, especially, you know, we got the short season, we need to think differently about how we do some of this. And so this is somebody thinking differently. Okay? Yeah.
Terminate in 6 to 8 weeks. Is that a herbicide terminate?
Yes. He's traditional no-tiller with herbicide. Yes, sir. Yep. Yep. And so that's just one more way of doing beans, putting more cover on the ground, okay? And also addressing plant diversity, right? Just touch on Brix. Anyone using Brix? Okay, okay. And so it's a tool. It was put together for the wine industry and the fruit industry. So, but a lot of other people like to use it as well. It maybe doesn't correlate to the sugar content as easily as wine or fruit. Okay, but I've used it on other plants as well. And it gives you an indication, right? So you start to see what these Brix levels. If you look at some of this information, you can find, we had Dr. Dykstra come up and talk to us about it a couple winters ago. 12 appears to be utopia if you can get over 12. If you can get a reading of 12 plus on your Brix meter, it appears like you are a little stronger scenario in terms of insects, okay? And so the aphids are real low. They'll consume plants in real low Brix, sucking insects, chewing. Grasshoppers don't seem to care. They'll take about anything. And so they'll tolerate a much higher Brix. But typically, if you can get over 12, it gets better. And there's all kinds of rating sheets like this one on the right you can run out that show the plant you're interested in looking at and what kind of is a low, fair, good, excellent type rating. Not all that easy to raise it, right? Not all that easy. And so you look at this and then you look at the correlation. If it's low Brix or lower quality, insects should be there for you. They should be there, right? Because that's their job then, to come into that lower Brix. In the high tunnel, if I get aphids in our high tunnel, we also have high tunnel gardening at Menoken Farm in addition to the cropland. If we get aphids, I take my leachate and I add molasses to it and I put a foliar on. Their stomachs aren't geared to that because now I artificially raise the Brix level. Does that make sense? It doesn't kill an aphid, but they have to move on. They're going to go to the neighbor, right? They're going to go somewhere else. But they aren't going to be in that high tunnel anymore, right? Because they can't eat that. And so you start to figure this out a little bit on how you can encourage them to move on. All right. Also, I took a look in that whole scenario on PAR and UV, and so I got light meters for both now. Gives me a pretty good idea. If you want to raise the Brix, you're going to have this high photosynthetic energy. So if you're in a greenhouse or a high tunnel and you want to raise Brix, you got to be really careful what kind of shade you'd put on or those type things, because your Brix is going to be lower, right? Your outside garden, same plant, your outside garden will be higher Brix. And so you start to find your way. And UV is always really low, also in the high tunnels and the greenhouses. And UV is how insects navigate. And so it's an important aspect also, depending on your goals, right? These are my meters. You can see inside I had a PAR photosynthesis rating of 518, and outside I'm over 1,000, okay? and the shade was listed as a 50% shade. And the math figures out, right? I was cut in half on photosynthesis when I went in the high tunnel. So not a good environment for tomato or cucumber, but peas, beans, etc. would love it, you know. So you find your way. But these are good scenarios. What I really like about these meters, on, off, on, off. That's all they do, on, off. And so I like that, right? That's refreshing. Turn it on and read it, okay? So Brix readings in the high tunnel for tomato, I averaged over 6 weeks. The Brix reading averaged 7, 8. Outside, same type of tomato outside, averaged 9.9. Which one's going to taste sweeter? That outside tomato is going to taste sweeter. Which one is going to be more left alone by insects? The outside one is going to be a little more resistant because it's higher, okay? So you look at those type things and you start to find your way in the whole Brix world. Corn, I had an open pollinated OP corn, right? So I had an OP corn, and that one averaged, what, 11.4. My GMO corn soybean field, it averaged 10. So was there a difference between the GMO and the non? Well, in this particular scenario, one glimpse at it, yeah, it averaged out a little different. So you start to see, you know, what the potential is of some of these items. Winter wheat, I had winter wheat with no pesticide. I had clover. You can see the clover underneath where the swather went, okay? That one, the Brix range was 17. I don't know if that's high or not. It's the first time I averaged one out for the full year. And the Brix reading on my spring wheat field, which had a herbicide, was 15. And so you start to look at these indicators for Brix and indicators for nutrient. Beetle banks, if you are looking at a scenario in terms of life, I took a small area here and I heaped the center up. Kind of pained me to move that soil, but I did it. And so we heaped it up roughly about 1 foot high because you want the water to drain away. And then I covered it and we planted plugs of native grasses and flowering forbs. And this is what it looked like a year later. And so what you're doing is you're building a 750-foot effective zone for the insects to go out from that area. And so these are plants. These are plants that we typically have planted. These are us. So these are native to us. There's 5 clump grasses, native clump grasses, warm season grasses, and 5 flowering forbs. And we're doing this for our urban dwellers because we want to address the largest irrigated crop in the U.S., which is Kentucky bluegrass. Exactly, yeah. Kentucky bluegrass just dominates, right, in terms of a lawn. And so how do we bring diversity into that area? Okay, and so we'll go ahead and encourage their use. And instead of a beetle bank, they can put a beetle bump in the backyard. 3, 4 plants in a little mounded area. It would look aesthetically pretty. And all the life in that backyard is going to be in those native plants, not in the Kentucky blue. Okay, and so it's all things we can do, right, to make this thing, to bring life with diversity. Okay, I'm not going to go into that. Those are just our beetles, little biter, right? And those are our beetles. You see the hood is raised here and the wings came out. And that hood is typically an elytra. And so if you're watching a beetle carefully, you'll see him raise it and then wings come out and away he goes, right? But he's got that unique hood on him, typically. Whether it's a dung beetle or a milkweed beetle, whatever their purpose is, there's lots of them. And so we try to have, if you walk through that pollinator beetle bank in the mornings, you're going to see all kinds of life. And a little bit different life, but these can be put on the edges of a field, they can be put on the corners of irrigation pivots, they can be any length. They're typically 6 feet wide. They can be any length. But they allow us to build back a resource because we got to have those critters if we're going to step into that arena. It just gives us a little glimpse there. And then slughelp.com in terms of all the predators of a slug, and Birdtopia also in regards to slugs, because at some locations these are an issue, some they aren't. But there's tons of slugs, tons of predators of slugs if you have that environment. And so I've taken a look at a lot of these different beetles that we're trying to foster, and they do have some significant impacts. Okay. Rain gardens, so we don't allow any rain. We try not to allow any rain to come off of a roof, you know, at Menoken Farm and not go into a container. So we try to catch all the rainwater. And I think this is a huge item. I use it in the high tunnel, use it in the outdoor garden. Also, it goes into these rain gardens like this with native plants and pollinators. Lots of things you can do on the edge of your shop at home. It's not difficult to do, but those can be put in with some native plants and you will have life in there. So we can step into bioinoculants a little bit. I think we got a few minutes yet. And so anyone using any kind of bioinoculant on a seed? Okay. And so inside the seed is biology. Outside of the seed is biology. Okay. This is the transfer of biology to different areas. And so if you take a look at it, it plays this role of microbial dispersion. Okay. And so we can also foster that, or we can enhance that biology. We can bring more biology onto that seed or the seed trench. Okay? I started out with extracts and teas, did those for a number of years, and that's an option. And the extract is just the straight extraction without adding food. The tea is the extraction plus you added food, and then ran it for 24 hours with air in the water. That's an option for more biology if that's your goal. I've done some simple things like this. It's how I started with gravity, and pretty extravagant system here. And I do it with rainwater. And so I take the rainwater, and this was just a livestock tank that got me started. And then I had a bit of an assembly line with like Johnson Sioux composters for static compost. Okay, I had all kinds of them here. And so this was my assembly line with the rainwater. And I would get the extraction out of the compost. Okay, had aeration. You got to have aeration, otherwise it goes anaerobic, and it'll make alcohol and everything dies. Okay, and so this was a good environment with the worms underneath. So I started this way, but then quickly figured out we got to have an organic material, and then they fostered much better. I store them in there over the winter. Kind of that's my personal stash. If I need more worms, I can go to there. I don't like buying them, so we just grow them. And so Wednesdays is always a good day here, because Wednesdays is Watermelon Wednesday day. And then you bring a melon, and they are really happy. They're totally addicted to watermelon. And so I keep them there, and it gives me an early start in the spring. Okay, that's why I typically do that. Say again? They survive the winter? They'll survive the winter in the compost to some degree, but a lot of the adults freeze, and then I think a lot of the eggs will start up again. But I always keep a stash to augment it in the spring. Gets me off to a quicker start. Yep. And like I said, they really like watermelon, and they will clean up. They prefer Walmart, and so I'll get them some Walmart melons, and away they go. All right. I started here, so I took it here, and this is where I cut my teeth on bioinoculants. I put them in the high tunnel. Everything all the coating got put on, right? So it went into the seed trench, or it went on the seed itself, or the transplant, tomato transplants got dipped into the leachate. So everything got a coating, and then usually 2 applications of foliar during the growing season. So there's no fertilizer in there, okay? There's no herbicide in there. There's no pesticide in there. This is for the food kitchens in Bismarck, Mandan receive the produce, and we get the data. Okay, this is an opportunity to give back, right? We should think about those things as human beings. At some point, we should give something back. Okay, so this is my opportunity to give back. And it flourishes. Okay, so we can have that environment. It starts out with the compost, and I like a lot of different species in it. I also like to keep an eye on the temperature, so a 4-foot temperature gauge here, keep me under 160. And then I decided to go to the cropland. So now we're going to go from the garden to the cropland to use the bioinoculant. So we put in a pad, and you can see when you get the double rainbow in North Dakota, then you know you're going down the right road. That's our indicator. So you see that. That happens all the time to us. And so I put in a drain at the end, and I sloped it 2% to the center, and I sloped it 2% from the high end to the low end, and I put in some tile drainage here for lines for airflow, because you got to have air. And I filled it full of compost, completed compost, okay? And if you look at the turned, the static is the orange, the turned compost is the blue. It's what happens in terms of biomass life and fungi specifically. Is there a difference when you don't turn it, but you have aeration? Yeah, you get more fungi in it for sure. Okay. When you turn it, it's kind of like working soil. You're really tough on the fungal component. Okay. So, yes, sir.
Are you using forced air in those tubes then?
No, they're open on both ends. Yep. Yep. Good question. So 50 degrees is typically what it stays at, even in July. It's an insulated livestock tank. Same thing my rancher clients used over the years. So some type of insulated hood on it. So it comes in directly into there. Shelf life is very good. I put a hay cover on it, alfalfa hay cover on it. And I have bungee cord lacing, laced it up like a shoe. The tubes are open on both ends. Okay. So we get air in there, ends up in this tank, okay? So now it's brown, everything's brown. So if you have brown, what kind of biology are you gonna have? It's more saprophytic, right? Because it's all about decomp, right? So the portion of the soil food web you're fostering here is more the decomposition group, okay? So this is just my end product here, finally. And then I've used various pumps. Some are more friendly to the soil food web than others, but I'll pump it into the sprayer. We got two small sprayers, one for life and one for death. I never mix the two. And so you keep them separate, right? And so this one is the sprayer for life, and so I'll pump the leachate in there. And we also use it in the planter. So typically 4 gallons to the acre is what we usually run with a little sugar and a little fish emulsion. For food, for the biology, if you're going to put the biology into that seed trench, a little bit of food with it is good for them, okay? Gets them off to a nice start. And then we put a foliar on, usually once, sometimes twice, but usually once a year. I'll augment the biology on the leaf. All leaves are full of biology already. If I add the leaf early, if I add the biology to the leaf early in the year, I will take up the room and space and food on the leaf that a disease might have taken up otherwise. Okay? Doesn't kill anything, but it takes up those type environments. Some observations. Wheat, this is spring wheat, and the spring wheat where I did and didn't, okay? So the blue is where I applied it, and that's in terms of the fungi. Definitely made a difference on the fungi. Also the saprophytic fungi and the mycorrhizal. The mycorrhizal is the green one. The saprophytic is the one that breaks down the high carbon materials like wheat straw and corn residue. And so you need them both. You need saprophytic to decomp. You need mycorrhizal to support a green plant. Where I did and didn't in the cornfield, not a huge difference. There's no commercial fertility on this ground. It's just running off of these dynamic soil properties and inherent values in the soil itself. But you can see a little more, maybe a little more vigor on the right side, just eye observation. And when I take a look at those analysis difference from the control again, yeah, it does definitely seem to impact it when I bring in the bioinoculant and the foliar. And then this is my OP corn. The OP corn expressed itself much more than the GMO corn did. Okay? And so the GMO corn had the full treatment on it, and the full treatment in terms of insecticide, fungicide, whatever is on a standard GMO, definitely had an impact. But on the OP, did it express itself? In the control, there was nothing applied, but the rest where it was applied was a big difference. So the OP corn, open pollinated corn, definitely had a big impact.
Corn seed treatments?
There's no treatment on this corn.
Okay,
both
sides.
The GMO had treatment. Yep, the GMO had treatment, and it showed up in the lack of response to the leachate. Yep, good question. Yep, that's just my spade there in front of it. The OP corn was a real experience because of how the plants express themselves. You know, we're used to these standard fields. Everything's same height, everything's same width, every plant looks alike. It's not like that in an OP field. It's whatever that plant felt like doing. And so it was a real experience. We hand harvested and selected for seed, and we caught a break. You know, there's less lignin in here, so you're going to have some, if you have winds like we do, you're probably going to have some plants tip over. So we went in and hand harvested and selected with criteria for next year's crop, okay? Because you're going to select the ones you're looking for, and we caught a break 2 days before we did this. We got a gentle breeze of around 60 miles an hour for a good, close to 48 hours, and it knocked some over, so it helped us know which ones we didn't want to select. So we caught a great break there, and this is just part of our team. And I mean, it's people who want to eat good food, people who want to be responsible how they farm. It's people who basically want to do the right thing. And you come together as a group and you can do some of these things. So then it went from brown to green, so it's a learning process. It went from brown to green, so I was brown, right? Everything was brown on that pad. And then I listened to Dr. James White, the rhizophagy guy out of Rutgers. You've read his article or listened to his talk? Okay, so I had a sit-down conversation with him about what I was doing, and he said, you need to build a community of microbes for the following year's crop to select from. So I thought about that. Well, I'm building part of the community. Mine's all brown. So I said, I need to change. So I secured these. We always sell these in the spring to urban clients, rural clients. These are all different plants in a little container that you can buy and take home and put into your property. And I said, well, I'm going to gather up some of these, and there's a lot of different species, and I planted them on that pad, right through the alfalfa, right into that compost pad. Okay, so that's how it looked on June 13th. That's how it looked on July 18th. You can see they're starting to evolve. That's how it worked on August 11. Okay, they're starting to express themselves. This is how it looked on August 27th. And now I'm thinking, okay, now we got a green plant, so now we got to stab at mycorrhizal fungi, not just saprophytic fungi, right? Because you got to have a green plant. And so I'm thinking, why didn't I think of this right away? And because I wasn't ready to think of it, I guess. And so now we got a scenario where we're going to harvest green, okay? So that whole scenario with harvesting green, where are the microbes in that green plant? They're on the outside of the plant, they're on the inside of the plant, they're in the xylem, they're in the phloem, they're in the plant, they are the plant, okay? Like us, they're all over on us. And so you start looking and thinking about that when you step into the world of bioinoculants. You're trying to have something, I want it to be local. So if I use a bioinoculant on a seed, I want that from our environment. I want that from as immediate area as I can. I don't want to bring it from someplace else. I want it to be us already, okay? So this was our goal at putting that together. And now for 25, I'll be using this inoculant on our seeds as we plant. And I'll use about 4 gallons because I have enough leachate to do that. And so I have the drip water lines on top of there. And so I'll start in advance because I want a slow drip into that tank. I don't want to flush. If I get a big inch or two of rain, I'm going to have some of that. But I try to keep that as tempered as I can, so it's just a slow release. And so now the biology can funnel in. So kind of gives you some idea. Okay, a little more of your homework here on this last slide. So these are some books you can think about. Okay. I think this one might be Kansas, Buffalo Harvest by Frank Meyer. Anyone read that? That is a great read and really helps us understand, I think, in terms of how we took out however many million within just a few years of bison. But it is a great read. This is the guy that shot more of, his claim was he shot more of them than anyone else. And so it's an interesting read, but it helps us understand. Okay, it's about our environment. My old colleague John Sticka, Soil Owner's Manual. He writes really well, and if you're looking for a starter book, that's a great one because he writes in a plain manner that you can incorporate. So a lot of these are really good. Grow Your Soil by Diane Meisler, another great book. I love them all. If you have some local ones, local for us, Buffalo Bird Woman's Garden, that's our environment. And so that was a indigenous rotation that was captured through a white settler initially and eventually got to a publisher. We only have a few indigenous rotations that were captured, and that's one of them. So that for us locally, that's a good one. Lewis and Clark, always a great read. Nature and Property of Soils, if you have no life whatsoever, that's your book. That's a textbook, but I've read it more than once. And so again, if you got no life, an old man with no life right here, I'll read that one. But you find your way. And so you can go through those. Anything by Aldo Leopold, that's a good read always. There's lots more besides this, obviously, but it's a good place to start. What else? If you have an early settlement of Kansas type book, man, those are worth reading. Journals of settlers or anything of that. Railroad, a lot of times railroads had some kind of impact statements that were written up. If you can look at any of those for your neighborhood, those are really great. Okay. YouTube channel is called Menoken Farm. Our website is menokenfarm.com. And I think we're all kind of in this together. And I think it's how do we bring this food production chain into a safe manner? How do you stay economically viable? How do you feel good about what you do? And I think those are all part of this scenario that we're talking about. So with that, I'm just going to open it up if there's time, Howard, for a question or two before lunch, or no? Tell me. Sure, he said. Yeah.
When your pizza's cooling off, just keep that in mind.
Well, we'll just take a couple. Go ahead.
How long does your leachate last?
The leachate, I've had some for 2 years.
In the tank, does it go bad on it?
So in the tank, if I keep that insulated hood on there, and it stays at under 60 degrees, you'll know if it went bad. You'd smell it right away.
Pump it out.
I pump it directly into the tanks, and then at the end of the year, I pump it out. But I also have some inside the building, and it's inside the building, and I've had that in there for 2 years. I still can't smell a thing. So the shelf life's pretty good as long as it's stored out of the sun, stored maybe in a cooler environment, something insulated. It'll stay a long time. Yeah. It's a good question because I first thought it's going to last a few days. And then I thought, well, no, it's going to probably make a few weeks. Well, then I went to months. Now I'm a couple years, and with one, I still have one container that's 2 years old. And so if it's stored right, it'll stay dormant. I add no air or food. What's going to happen if I add air or food? It's game on. It's game on. You're going to have to do something with it. Yeah. Yeah.
To visit Menoken Farm, are just random stragglers traveling through welcome to stop in, or if we want the best educational experience, we wait to come to one of your field days?
All of the above.
See, I would like to have an in-depth walkthrough on that whole DJ system you built, how it works, how you build
Yeah.
it.
So if you come to the Menoken Farm, just you can have my email, or you can go onto our website. There's one of those Gmail email accounts. Even if you do that, we do answer those. A lot of places don't, but we do answer those. And if you come, there's no charge to you, and we would be happy to take time for you. We average about 40 days a summer, and you'd be welcome to join another group, or you'd be welcome to come on your own. Either way.
And Jay does excellent tours.
When Floyd came last summer, you know, we thought, okay, he's from Kansas, maybe we should try to stop him at the South Dakota border, but no, he got through anyway. And then, you know, we had a great day. And so you're welcome to come. We'd be happy to spend time with you. So I work part-time, but if I know you're coming, I try to make myself available. Yeah.
That leachate field, the mound that you built on
Yep.
the top of it,
Yep.
does that last more than 1 year?
Yes, sir. That's going into its third year.
Third year?
Yep.
Okay.
And it takes the biology a long time to consume all that. I mean, it's a pretty good mound.
Yeah.
Yep. Is it shrinking? Slowly. It has shrunk some. Yep. 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 And eventually, we're just going to harvest it off and replace it with new compost. So it was cured compost when it went on there, because the earthworms and the red wigglers and the European night crawlers, everything we have on there, they can all consume that. Right? They got something to eat then. Even though I give them watermelon as a treat, but they can consume the compost because it's already been through decomp. They have no teeth, right? So they need something decomposed.